I'm Stephen Foskett, and this is Cloud Field Day in San Jose, California. You're about to watch a discussion between Cisco and a panel of bloggers, podcasters, writers, and speakers focused on this technology topic. We invited them here to interact and to represent the wider IT audience. We welcome their questions and comments during the presentation. If you would like to join us, please tweet using the hashtag CFD1 and watch our recordings at youtube.com/techfieldday. You can also visit techfieldday.com for more information about our event and to learn how to become a presenter or a delegate at a future Field Day event.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bill Harper. I'm with Cisco Systems. I'm a solution architect, a cloud solutions architect. I came to Cisco through the MetaCloud acquisition. Had anybody out there heard of MetaCloud before Cisco acquired them? Okay, we were an early OpenStack company, and we built a model around OpenStack, which was OpenStack as a service. So in other words, delivering OpenStack on-prem, much like Amazon does. They do it in the cloud, but we do it on-prem for reasons of security, for reasons of data integrity, and that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this agenda here. A little bit short at the front here. Talk a little bit about cloud strategies, digital trends, and I welcome questions from everybody here in the room. So please ask questions so that we can keep this interactive along the way. Happy to take them. My role is, before I get started here, is I talk to customers all the time. So I'm an architect. I don't sit in headquarters. I don't have an office here. I spend my time with customers, talking to customers, helping them understand how to adopt the technology. And everything that sits on top of it, which David will talk about, and some of the following presenters will talk about, technologies you can put on top of Metapod to actually add value to it. So we're going to talk about cloud strategy, trends, which is real obvious. It's, I only got 2 marketing slides. It's really on trends, and then really mostly get into Metapod. And I'll mention economics a little. I did take the slide out because it was a little controversial, but we'll talk a little bit about what we see in terms of economics of a Metapod deployment versus an Amazon deployment. So first, what we usually do, and I'm just going to build this slide all the way out, is we usually go in and talk to customers, and you may do the same if you're out there consulting or whatever, about what is their strategy and goals? What do they know about cloud? Have they tried the public cloud yet? If so, what have they done with it? They have a POC? Are they just running a few VMs? Are they all in? Were they born there? Many of our clients today actually were born in public cloud and use Metapod as a way to leverage a private cloud for data integrity. DevOps and automation, which some of the presenters behind me will get into, are they into rapid deployment of applications? Are they still sort of into the old school way of doing things? Do they have a platform as a service or a cloud management platform like Clicker or Cloud Center now, which will be talked about today? Are they using any of that sort of stuff to actually have back-end clouds that they put various resources to? And then we talk about people, how many applications do you have that you really think are cloud native? And most of the guys that have come out of Amazon have applications that are built that way. A lot of the traditional guys don't. And I have a slide in here that'll show some of our customers. So this is really, I have 1 or 2 marketing slides here, but really software is changing the world. This is a service I just love to death. Most people use it. You can put Airbnb here and a whole bunch of other stuff. If you put your head in the sand, you're going to end up like this. So this is real obvious, I'm sure, to everybody in the room, but we like to set the conversation up with, you can't sit on your hands and not do anything. You have to get out and do something. And this is a quote from Marc Andreessen, software is eating the world. It's a nice little Pac-Man screen, a game I used to play with when I was younger, and maybe people in the room did as well. But this is what we're seeing, and we see this in the marketplace. Since I'm in the cloud business, I'm constantly, and hopefully my manager's not watching this, contacted by headhunters. And the interesting ideas that you find out there that people are doing in this whole software space, the sort of things that they're automating or offering as a service, because small companies can't run a pager service or run some sort of field scheduling service. So there's a lot of work going into this area. And where does it end up? It ends up on your mobile phone typically, right? There's typically an app on your mobile phone that ties back into the broader picture. Questions so far? Anybody? How is this being done? It's being done not the old way. So the old way is on the top here, which is, release every 6 months to a year. My code's done. I'm going to throw it over the wall to operations and let it run. And, everything's tightly coupled. So if you change one little thing here, you might break something else. Bad model. So it's being done like this. people are converting to DevOps. They're trying to get the op people and the developer people together to own the entire infrastructure and application. And they're doing this whole continuous delivery. How many times you get on your iPhone and every day I get on my iPhone it says 15 updates. I'm like, really? I just updated it yesterday. Well, that's what this is all about, is continuous delivery and application. And that's just an example that we kind of see every day. And then loosely coupled services. I'm a huge Unix fan. I've been doing Unix probably my whole career. And Unix, cloud and everything that sits on top of all this sits on top of something that was designed a very similar way. A lot of small little components that work together and do a job very, very well. So Metapod, now we'll actually get into the Metapod piece. I kind of sort of wanted to set it up for the following presenters as well as sort of what we're looking at in terms of the market and what's going on. So what is Metapod or MetaCloud? It'll probably be named back to MetaCloud again, but right now we're not allowed to say it, so I didn't really say that. It's powered by OpenStack. It's managed by Cisco. It's deployed behind your firewall in your data center, wherever your data center is. And we have an SLA against the APIs and the interface, the dashboard of 99.9. And I'll talk about how we do that and why we do that. And really what it is once it's delivered to you, it's a cloud that sits in your data center that you have total access to. You're the admin of, you carve it up, you use the resources. We're just like Amazon. We're just managing this lower layer here, and we're not doing anything on top of that. That's really your business to run your app on top of it. Question?
So is it purely like a technical thing? Are you providing cloud technology, or do you talk about cloud or newer processes and things like that? Because we had a big discussion earlier about, is cloud more than just a technology, and is it all about new processes, improved?
It is. I think it's about way more. So we're providing what is called the infrastructure as a service, the IaaS platform. He'll talk about sort of container management, container as a service, and you're going to talk about sort of multi-cloud management with Cloud Center. So there's all those things that sit on top of this rock-solid IaaS that provide way more value. So this is a building block, but this is a hard building block. Anybody in the room ever tried to build OpenStack, or has anybody that's tried to build it themselves?
I think they all nearly killed themselves.
Yeah, it's really hard. And so MetaCloud, where I came from, has been doing it since release C, Cactus. And we upgrade it. So as a customer, we roll from G to L to the M releases. We actually have a seamless upgrade where the customer's environment, all the VMs, everything continues to run, and we schedule an upgrade with them. You may have an API outage or dashboard outage, but everything else continues to run. And I'll talk about how we do that in one of the technical slides when we get
I think one of my questions is that you're providing the underlying infrastructure, right? I see that as a lot of companies do that. EMC's had the federated hybrid cloud option there before, which is basically here's our stack. Now it's not a managed solution like this,
right?
But what about things above that? What about getting organizations to the point they can take advantage of something like OpenStack? Is Cisco pushing that as well? Is that part of this? Is there a large front end kind of strategic engagement in front of this before you would do a Metapod deployment?
Absolutely. We'll sit down and we'll talk about it. And the people that are the easiest to migrate to OpenStack are the people out of Amazon. And the dirty little secret is OpenStack was designed as a clone of Amazon. So if you look at the security groups, floating IPs, the words are almost the same. Volumes, those are EBS volumes. I mean, you're shaking your head because you know a little bit about both. So it was almost designed to be, I don't want to pay Amazon. I want to have developers be able to stand up their own private cloud with similar feature set. Well, you can do it on your own. So it's funny you went to that slide. So the way you can consume this is you can do it yourself. You can go out to openstack.org, download everything, find some instructions, and piece it together yourself. And I'll tell you, one of the config files for one of the pieces, nova.config, probably has 1,000 options in it, config options. We know how to do that really well. The second way you can do OpenStack is you get it from Red Hat or CentOS or Ubuntu or a distribution. Mirantis is another distribution, although Mirantis is talking about doing our model today as well as Platform 9. And then the third way you can consume it is as a service, as Metapod is delivered as a service, and now Mirantis is doing it in Platform 9, which is another startup out there, is delivering OpenStack as a service, because it's hard. And so we've been doing it a long time, and we know a lot about how to do it. People take it for granted because you just use it and it just works, but it's really, really hard under the layer, just as Cloud Center is hard for what it does, as well as all the stuff that David will talk about, Mantle and Contive and all the development tools that sit on top of it.
So is this coupled to hardware in this instance? Is it always coupled to hardware?
So I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yes and no. So yes, for the control plane where we put the SLA, and I'll talk about that, but we have models where we don't have to, and then we don't have the SLA. The bottom part where your hypervisors are, your big fat nodes that run your VMs, we're pretty open on that. And we're open on the storage as well. We've got a lot of partners in the storage. But
How do you deal with, sorry to interrupt, how do you deal with the SLA? You specifically scope your SLA to just cover that management plane?
So the SLA covers the uptime of the APIs in the dashboard. And the way we achieve that is through, and I'm sort of jumping ahead, is through the architecture. The control plane that we run, where all the OpenStack services run, is basically a 3-node HA cluster.
Yeah.
So I can take nodes in and out of that cluster randomly, and it just runs, right? And I kind of jumped ahead, but I'll show you that slide here in a minute. But that's how we get the SLA, as well as the network stack on top is Nexus 9Ks and ASRs using HSRP. So everything in that stack is redundant. And if you lose a component, it continues to run. And that's why we have the SLA.
So you do enforce a certain architecture for this platform?
For the SLA.
Exactly.
So we have another architecture that we call provider network, which means the network stack is owned by the customer, and they provide to us in OpenStack network space. VLAN /24/20, whatever it is.
Cover that in the SLA?
Well, we don't cover that because they own the network. We cover the SLA on the control plane, which is those 3 servers, so we'll still have an SLA on the APIs, but not on the network. So that's sort of how it works. And what we find, since you're kind of drilling into this, is large customers, we have some service provider customers I can't talk about. They all want provider network. Their network guys are anal about controlling the network. You pull someone out of Amazon, they want the full Neutron cloud networking model that I'll show you, because their cloud admins are used to already doing network, and they're not this huge shop that's sort of subdivided. I see you smiling there because it's probably ringing a bell or something. Yeah. So this is what we see that people want, and this is why Amazon was born, is self-service, integration with existing tools, open and well-documented APIs. Everyone looks at Metapod and they go, well, is it proprietary? No, it's OpenStack. So if you want to go away from Metapod and stand your own up, the stuff will just migrate over. The APIs will migrate over. The tool sets will migrate over. It's 100% compatible. Reliable performance is another thing that we see people looking for. So it's API driven for developers. So all these tools, and some of these tools Cisco owns on this side, and some of them are stuff out there that you guys have seen. DevOps tools, container management tools, all these things will typically run on OpenStack. Anything that I see that runs on Amazon will run on OpenStack, and VMware as well. So this is what we see in terms of what developers use. And I was asked yesterday by a customer, so which one is the best? It sort of depends on what you're using and what you're trying to do. I'm a huge fan of Ansible, just because it's simple and it requires no agent in the VM, but others are fans of other different products. So it sort of is what you're a big fan of. I'm also a fan of a lot of this stuff out here, the past stuff, huge fan of all the Cisco stuff here. The other tools are sort of build your own, if you will, so build your own sort of cloud management platform. So this slide, again, is talking about how you consume it in the layers, but the reason I put this on there is what you really do with this is it's at the bare bones, it's an IaaS, but this is what people do with it. These are some of our customers that I'm allowed to talk about. Tapjoy, basically data mining on your cell phone for gaming. SurveyMonkey, they're here in Palo Alto. Shutterfly, they're here locally. Tableau Software up in Seattle, their cluster's over 100 nodes and they're building a second one. We've got several large telcos that I can't say the name of. Large entertainment company that runs amusement parks around the world that fans flock to. Uyala streams video for NBC and all sorts of other sort of people out there. So the platform is really what you do with it, with tools like Clicker or the container management stuff or any of this other stuff that these guys have built to drive the platform. So really the value is the software that you put on top of it. And then you just don't deal with this. We deal with this for you. If there's a patch, if there's an upgrade, we do this, and you worry about what makes you money, which is the application layer.
Outside of the Cisco name, what differentiates you guys from Platform 9 and some of the other competitors that are doing OpenStack as a service?
As a service. We've been doing it longer. And so what I'll say, and I don't know that I've got the picture in here, I might have it in here, is we actually, people think of a managed service as like there's a guy watching a console, he logs in when something happens, he logs in when a user calls. The way we do a managed service is we have 150 to 200 probes that sit in the cloud that are listening for bad things to happen. Memory errors, data errors, leaks, disk errors. We even have a synthetic transaction where every 3 minutes we boot a VM, we attach a volume, we make it go out on the internet and grab some stuff and pull it back, and then we delete it and make it go away. So we do it to a way, way higher degree, in my opinion, than Platform 9 or than Mirantis does it, because they don't have, we've built this over time. When I first started, there was 100 probes, now there's like 198. So as we find things that we want to tune and make better, it's like any software, you're constantly trying to make it the best you can. So that's really the big differentiator, is that we probe it. And no one sits and looks at a screen at your cloud. The software alerts a human when something hits a threshold that it's not healthy.
So like Blue Box, those guys, they're not doing that, or?
Not to the level we're doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, not to the level we're doing it. I have access, we use Zabbix and a bunch of Python scripts and other things. I have access sort of the portal the ops guys have. There's alerts that go off all the time, and sometimes they're just warnings, sometimes they're things that we need to reach out to the customer for. So we're constantly listening to what goes on inside the cloud.
Do customers have access to that portal?
They don't, but if they want access, it's a lot of data they don't want to see. So if they want access to the OpenStack logs, boot a VM, that sort of stuff that's in kind of their space up the stack, we'll syslog stream those to them.
Okay.
So there is some information that they can get. But they're really paying us to do that. So a lot of customers don't even want to know. They just want us to reach out when a server has a memory error. And that's what will happen. If a server has a memory error, gets disconnected from the network, we're going to reach out to the customer and say, hey, I need some help here. And they have somebody in the data center that remediates the problem or works with us. And meanwhile, we may say, there's 10 VMs on here. What do you want us to do? Can you migrate them somewhere else? So we'll actually live migrate the VM somewhere else while they put that machine in maintenance mode. We'll take it out of the cluster and let them fix it and bring it back in later.
And how far are you guys behind on release cycles?
So we're on Liberty right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the typical?
So we're generally about a year behind for stability reasons.
Okay.
Generally where we play is about a year behind. Yeah. So here's a slide I like to show customers and how you consume this. And I sort of talked about it earlier, but you can consume it by doing it yourself. I can make a VM, I can put something on there, I can do something to it, I can load packages, make an application, make a web server, make an Ansible, do whatever. So you can actually do it at the command line. You can use a tool like a PaaS system. Cisco actually sells Cloud Foundry and Apprenda, which are two PaaS systems. We've got several customers, Tapjoy being one that I spoke of, doing big data on Metapod. And Tapjoy's cloud is 150 nodes. They're small nodes. They're not big fat nodes. They're small little nodes. And what they do, and a lot of people go, well, big data doesn't play in that. And what they do is they actually put one VM on each node, and we help them in a methodology on how to do that using host aggregates. And then, of course, we have all the Cisco IP that also can consume resources on Metapod. The whole Clicker stack or the Cloud Center stack and the whole Mantle stack that David's going to talk about with Contiv and all the stuff that sits on top of it. So it really is what you do with Metapod that brings you the value. The other half of this is the people that administrate this. So mostly I was talking about sort of developers and users and what they do with it. The people that administer it, what do they want? They want to be able to govern and manage and have full control, and basically look at statistics, and they want to have self-service out there, but they want to have some level of control. Set quotas around tenants so that you can't use too many VMs. So this is a kind of an idea of some of the control we provide, and kind of back to one of your questions about what differentiates us. Nobody else in OpenStack has these performance metrics. This is standard OpenStack admin control. Admin can do anything, reboot, delete, whatever in the cloud. But we actually let the admin look at bare metal performance. We actually let them look at VM performance. The user can look at this as well as they can view the cluster and see how healthy it is. So there's several things that we put in there to give the customer visibility into what's going on. The administer.
Now, is that both the data and control plane?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you can see metrics in the control plane, the three controller nodes, as well as on the hypervisor nodes. Absolutely. Yeah. So Metapod goal is really to make it easy for customers to get a cloud in-house and then start building on top of it. So time to value is something we always speak to customers about. Once it's installed, we know it's going to work because we've done this for the past 4 years. So integrated turnkey private cloud that just works. And we turn one on, we test it, we hand it off, and we're ready to layer Clicker on it. I have a customer right now that we're going to probably do some Clicker stuff with. But first, once Metapod comes up, they're going to do stuff with it, and then we'll layer some other stuff on top of it. But that's really, what the goal is to provide something that just works.
So is that 2 weeks start to finish deployment time? Is that
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And that includes testing and all that. And if there's customer issues along the way, it might be longer. So like a VLAN's not ready, or there's a firewall blocking something or something like that. So typically we go back and forth on different things. So I'm going to double click down in the architecture because I think he had me talk a little bit about it. This is the HA controllers. This is the networking piece. So this is prescriptive for the SLA. When we manage the network and the control plane, this is the Cisco solution. The hypervisor nodes, we prefer to use Cisco UCS, but you can use other vendor nodes down here. We allow you to do that. We support NFS storage, SolidFire, Pure, NetApp, and we have our own storage based on Ceph technology, which leverages the disk drives and these servers here to basically make a big pool you can bring card block devices out of. So if you know about Ceph. Again, we have another networking model where this can be managed by the customer. We still have an SLA on this, but customer still manages that and just feeds us network real estate, if you will, so we can have real estate to run in. So we have 50-50. 50% of the customers go with that model, 50% go with this full neutron model. And soon we'll have an ACI model. So we're working on integrating all the wonderful IP over the next year that Cisco has, so we'll have sort of 3 networking models. Customer managed, one that's like SDN like this one here, and then one that's based on ACI. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't know whether I missed whether you've said this anyway. I just noticed a question come in on Twitter.
Yeah.
Are you doing any additions of your own to OpenStack? And they're saying, for instance, Platform 9 in their HA system?
Yeah, so our whole control plane, this is all HA.
Okay.
And so this is all our own intellectual. In fact, if I go to the next slide, this is the double click on it. So we use things like, Pacemaker, CoreSync, HA Proxy, Keep Alive to basically HA all the single running services of OpenStack, and then things that have HA built in them like Percona, which is MySQL, and RabbitMQ. We'll use those technologies, HA capability to build that. But yeah, we've been doing this since the beginning of time. That's been part of what we do, is this whole HA control plane. The other thing we do with these controllers is, I talked about upgrades. When we do our upgrades, we take controller, because all the software pretty much runs here other than the KVM stuff. So we'll take controllers in and out of the cluster and upgrade the services. 1 click controller comes out, 2 come out, upgrade the services, bring the 3rd out, bring these 2 back up, a little bit of maybe an API outage, and then you're on the next version of code. So we use this also not only for the SLA, but for our upgrade procedures as well. Questions on any of that?
Yeah, last slide, if you don't mind.
Yep.
And it may come into the slide you're going on. If I do an all Cisco solution end-to-end servers, maybe I use your Ceph instead of Ceph storage instead of doing third party. Is there some sort of a time SLA for getting this thing on the floor? If you look at like vBlock from VCE, they're like 45 days from PO to gear on your floor up and running. Do you guys do something similar like that?
It's usually 2 weeks from kind of from the day it gets scheduled.
Okay.
So from the day it gets scheduled, there'll be like a 2-week scheduled window.
Okay.
We actually have quite a large backlog right now. So the backlog right now is over a month and a half right now.
Okay.
To get people into the queue for the 2-week build.
So month and a half right now, 6 weeks plus the 2 weeks delivery. So even still right now you're looking at, if I cut you a PO today, it'd be 8 weeks?
It would be 8 weeks, yeah.
Okay, that's still not terrible.
Yeah, it's good that we have a lot of volume coming in right now. And so the ops team is obviously building up. So it's one of those chicken and egg things, right? So this again is how we do it in the HA that we put into it to make sure everything's rock solid. The other thing I usually talk about is some of the stuff we do in the compute side. And so on the hypervisor side, I talked about this. The users have basically full control over everything they do in the cloud up to the quota. So they can make their VM 1, 2, 3, 8 CPUs. They can run a variety of operating systems. So OpenStack KVM, which is what's under it, will support Windows. So Tableau software runs 98% of their VMs on Windows, as well as all the different deviants of Linux. as well as, I'm an old Sun guy, so I put SmartOS and Solaris in here, and I put all sorts of stuff in here just to prove that it'll run. And for the most part, most of the stuff will run. One thing we've done, and we did this way before OpenStack was doing it, is live migration. So you can actually live migrate a VM, even if it has a local boot disk. It doesn't have to have shared storage from one hypervisor to another. And if it has a mount disk, it's sort of like a vMotion as well. So we can do that today from the command line or from the dashboard in our product. We use this filter scheduler. We actually allow you to custom subscribe the oversubscription of the CPU. So depending on your workload, our default is 6:1, OpenStack's is 16:1. So this is something that we can customize. This gets into the network side, and I won't spend too much time on this because it's kind of product oriented, but the point here is that network plane I showed you, there's a small, a medium, and a large. And the key facts behind that is the small will support 40 hypervisor servers, the medium will support 100, and the large will support 400.
These model configuration specific, so if I have my own C-series that maybe they're not the same model or don't have the same amount of capacity or other resources, can I use that? Or
so for the control plane, not really. I mean, the small one is probably as small as we go. It's because they're all SSD based.
Yeah.
In the metrics, and I didn't show you, I showed you some of the metrics, but we keep the metrics for up to a year. So every VM will have a metrics database up to a year of data where you can click on it and see a trend of the CPU or the memory or something like that. So the reason we do is because we want to be able to capture that data.
Right, but if I have my own servers
Yes.
today, right? Say I have some M4s, but maybe I have different size drives, or I have a little bit less RAM, or maybe the CPU model's different.
Yep.
Can I use that, or I have to buy?
You can use those for hypervisor nodes, absolutely.
But I can't use
Yep.
that for control plane.
Not for the control plane.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're close to what the control plane is, mainly the SSDs and the dual 10 gig E networking, these things are chatty. So these things are doing everything. I mean, it's the brains of OpenStack pretty much. So when you do something, the APIs hit it. When the VM does something, it goes back through it. So those things are always like, very, very chatty. And that's why they have that's why we designed them with SSDs.
Okay. If I have those, can I use my own?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this kind of gets into what we do. We do the middle part. Customer does the top part. We do the middle part, which is really keep the OpenStack running up and running. And then the customer does the hardware part. And this can, of course, be outsourced to a colo. We've got many people that don't like to deal with data centers, so they sort of outsource this bottom piece to partners. But the real value is this part up here, is what you do with this to build value for your company, or build an application that does something that provides value.
Do you have any support agreements with, say, NetApp? If I wanted you guys to do end-to-end support for storage, the compute, the network, everything?
Not today,
Okay.
but stay tuned. We will probably offer some sort of block storage device that will be OEM'd from one of our partners that was on the slide that will be fully supported. So at some point in time, we'll probably, one of the components I showed on there will have a Cisco label on it, run on a UCS server, and just be something you can buy as part of this. And then it'll be fully supported.
Okay.
Yeah. We work closely with them, so I was on a call yesterday with a customer, and we had the guy that wrote the Cinder driver for SolidFire on the call.
I'd say it's SolidFire, isn't it?
Yeah. And so he was on the call. Yeah, SolidFire is really, so we have customers that use NetApp, generic NetApp, and we have customers that want more performance in their applications will use SolidFire. The guys that use the NetApp sort of treat OpenStack like VMware because NetApp is persistent. It's got snapshots and snap mirrors and all this sort of stuff. So the big entertainment company that I spoke about earlier with all the theme parks actually uses tons of NetApp. A lot of our customers use tons of NetApp. The guys that are pushing the apps and pushing, video streams and stuff, they're going to probably be using SolidFire. Ceph, I typically position as medium performance storage, DevOps, that sort of stuff, really not for production, for high performing I/O. This is how we do what we do, and I think I'm probably running out of time here. No, I'm right on time, it looks like. This is how we do it. So this is the cloud out here. We basically have a one-way VPN that goes into this DMZ middle zone. And this is all being SOC and PCI certified as we speak. We're almost actually through SOC certification. And then our MetaCloud guys come into this area here. This is all two-factor authentication to get in here, as well as this can only go here. It can't go anywhere else, and no one can actually get into this tunnel. We have a security white paper for people that are interested in security that we can provide to you that talks about like what ports and all that sort of stuff make this happen. This is largely how we do that. Is we basically have our own VPN connection in here that if we need to get in, we can, but typically it's just monitoring. It's sort of like, if anybody's familiar with NetApp, they have, they have this thing where they push data out once a day. And it's called auto support. And I talk about...
ASAPs.
Yeah, it's auto, and I talk about this as it's like that on steroids because this is constantly happening all the time. And so if something, memory or whatever, we'll watch it, and then we'll reach out to the customer saying, hey, this server sort of doesn't look healthy. What do you want to do? And looks like you got 7 VMs on it.
Is that data available to customers?
The
probe information?
not really, because it's a lot of chatter. It's a lot of chatter. And it goes through several different tools that make sense of it before it gets to a human.
So there's no way for a customer to see a red, yellow, green light of things or anything like that?
So what we're working on, because we want to give more and more visibility, and I haven't showed you guys a demo yet, but when you log into OpenStack, there's this summary dashboard, and typically what it is like your usage. And what we like to do is actually have that be sort of a panel that has what you're talking about. So number of VMs, and it can be green, yellow, or red.
Trending data.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to run out of this stuff.
Exactly. Right? That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
What's the roadmap for that?
So we have a lot of that in the product right now.
Okay.
It's
exposed to the end user or just
exposed to the end user. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
I guess I'm confused of what I can see today against what's coming next.
So you can't see the errors. What you can see is the trend of the VMs, the CPU, the memory, the network utilization, all the sort of stuff that you would typically look at with, PS command or, netstat, IOStat.
Do you roll it up so that it's going to tell me when I need to add more nodes or add more storage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a summary page that will show you, and that's what's going to change and make it better. Today's generic OpenStack, but it'll show you that today I have, let's say, 2,048 virtual CPUs. I've consumed 900 of them. So there's definitely these 4 bars up there that show you, the admin person, what the total cloud consumption is.
Are you doing anything for averaging? So is it going to tell me in 194 days you're probably going to hit that limit, or is it just like a gas gauge, like you got your half?
So that's a really good question. So what we do, remember I talked about the probes, the 150, 200 probes? One of the probes is a capacity probe. So if any one of those indicators hits 80%, like storage, we're going to reach out to you and say, guess what? Your 80% of your storage is utilized. You only have 20% left. What would you like to do? Typically, they'll clean up, or they'll maybe provision us a bigger aggregate off the NetApp box, or what have you. But so we're going to alert somebody when they're 80% of capacity on any one of them. Compute, CPU, disk, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get a runway view, right? So if I log in and say, based on what you've been doing the last 6 months, if you continue to do that, you're going to need more storage in November.
So the other thing we give you is, and we're trying to make it something you can run as a weekly capacity report. And the capacity report basically has in it all the nodes you have, all the capacity, and how it changed weekly. You had 50 more VMs, and so there is what we're providing, and we want to make that better. Our goal is to provide, since it is a service, as much insight to the customer as possible into what's going on in the cloud. That is really one of our main goals. So today it's done by this text file email capacity report, but if you look at it, there's a lot of detail in it. And you can look at that and you can see, oh my gosh, I'm 80% out of CPUs, or I'm 90% or whatever. And like I said, we're going to alert you when you hit any one of those barriers. I've seen it happen before. All the customers that I bring on board, I get support notices for because I've subscribed to them, and I'll constantly see people run out of disk is what people run out of typically all the time.
Real quick, looking at this slide, and knowing that you guys manage the control plane, so we're talking Keystone, so all the passwords, all the keys. Do you have access to the data plane? What's on?
No.
Do you have credentials to get into that, or how does that work since you're controlling OpenStack and you have to know if I install new Nova instances?
Right.
You have to have the key for that.
Right. So we have a login into OpenStack, our team, of course, because if somebody calls up and says, I can't boot a VM, well, we want to be able to get in and try that, right? And that synthetic transaction I talked about is part of why we put that in there, is because we're going to know before they know. We want to know before they know if something's wrong.
Right.
But absolutely, if you looked in one of our clouds, it sounds like you're familiar with OpenStack, there'll be a tenant in there called MetaCloud,
right.
And it'll be our support tenant. And what'll happen in that tenant is that synthetic VM will run. There'll be a bunch of other little things that run in there for the health of the cloud. And if the guys need to log in and run a test because you've logged a call or they've seen some behavior, that's the sandbox they'll use. But they don't, you set the users up. So when you set users up, you set all the passwords and all that in Keystone. So we don't know what that is.
Okay.
We have sort of our own account that we can do support stuff with. But that's a really good question.
Okay.
Thanks for asking it. Anything else? Other questions? I think I'm almost done here.
I have a question about
Yep.
support and upgrade. Sorry, Justin.
You go first.
What's the upgrade experience like? And if I am on, let's say, K, all right, how far behind am I allowed to track before you guys start saying, thou shalt upgrade? And
Yeah, about one release. When
One
people
release?
get two release, well, we have today people 2 releases behind. So we're on Liberty today. So we generally skip every other release.
Okay.
So we went from Icehouse to Liberty. We still have people on Grizzly, and we're encouraging them to get to either Icehouse or Liberty.
so
We 2 releases
what about
is
Juno
where
and
we're.
Kilo?
Pardon?
What about Juno and Kilo then?
That's coming. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because you've skipped 2 releases there then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we mix stuff. So we may call it Liberty, but it may have stuff from the M release in it that fixes patches or whatever. Okay. And if you look at what the OpenStack community is doing, they're going from this big bang every 6 months. It's all frozen. Here it is, release L, J, whatever, to independent releases. Sort of how MetaCloud has been putting this together in the past. So we kind of pick the best bits to do this with.
And what's the experience? Yeah. What's the experience like? So, who does the upgrade and how is it managed and how long does it take?
So it's done by the ops team. It can be a 1 to 2 hour process typically, just depending on what needs to be done. It's scheduled, it's planned, the customer knows it's happening. So we kind of view ourselves as an extension of their IT team. And so we have support tickets they can open with us. We can open support tickets back if there's like probes or something that goes off in a hardware, something is wrong. So customers sort of dictate how that interchange works. And it's usually through email. And an email will go open a ticket in ServiceNow or Zendesk or whatever, on their side typically. Very collaborative is what we try to do. Go ahead.
I have a question just around the charging that you do for the service. So around capacity, for example. So one of the things around cloud systems is that there's a financial incentive to me about whether I'm using too much storage or not enough.
Right.
How does the charging model work for this service that you provide?
So I would compare this, it's just to answer your question, we charge by the socket. So if you buy a 10 node cloud, you're going to be paying for, and each server is 2 sockets, 20 sockets. She's going to kick me off here in a minute. So that's how we charge for it, is by the socket. So think about it as a reserved instance as Amazon. Once you buy it, you have you're paying for the whole capacity.
So, and is it CapEx or OpEx?
It's OpEx. It can be both.
It can be both.
You can pay it all up front or you can pay it monthly.
Okay, so
if
I decide, with the capacity, if I decide that I want some more,
yes,
then I just say, can I please have some more?
You say, I'm going to add 5 more hypervisors, you put us a support ticket in, you get them all ready, we change the billing, and all of a sudden you've got that much more capacity.
Okay.
So like Tableau Software I talked about, they started with like 20 servers, they had 90 today. And I've seen them add them in just chunks, like 10 more and 7 more and whatever they're doing up there.
What's the lead time on that support ticket? Is it instantaneous?
So if the server's all ready and ready to pixie boot, it's quick because the hardest part to install is the control plane. The easy part is to pixie boot a hypervisor that has Linux and KVM.
Yeah, but I'm talking like scalability, flexibility, being able to boot hypervisors into the environment just to cope with, I don't know, whatever demand the customer has.
It depends on how you put it in. So if you put it in as an emergency, so we have tiers in our support. So if you put it in as emergency, I'm running out of gas, I'm broadcasting the golf channel, which one of our customers was doing, we'll make it a priority and we'll try to get it done faster. It just sort of depends on how you rank it. I'd say generally 2 days. I've seen it take, people generally see that they're reaching that and they have to go buy hardware and do whatever and provision it and get it on the right network and,
but I'm thinking because you get the resource report emailed to you.
Yep.
That's a pretty passive, means of communication. There is a real chance you miss, the criticalness of that update.
You know, it's funny you say that. All of our customers actually read those reports in detail. I swear. I don't read them.
Yeah, but
I get them.
It's still something a human has to.
Yeah,
process
it is.
before-
It is. But there's a lot of guys actually will read them and reply back going, okay, I see I'm running out of this or I'm running out of that. Some of the customers are probably like me because I get them for all of my customers, probably don't read them. But you're right, that's kind of a human thing.
How many customers do you have?
So I want to say we probably got 50 plus availability zones built and we're supporting. Everything from one that's 150 nodes down to one that's like 10 nodes. So that's sort of the scale of the business we have.
Is that 50 customers-ish then?
Many customers have multiple AZs.
Okay, right.
Yeah, yeah. So typically, once one is successful, there's one or two more. The large entertainment customer has 4. Tableau Software is building a second one. Uyala has 4. So it's kind of all over the board. Many have just 1. Many of the new telcos we've signed on have 1. So this is real quick, and I know I got to get kicked out of here, but what we've done with the recent version of Metapod is it's now based on Red Hat. The OS used to be Ubuntu, now it's based on Red Hat. The OpenStack we start with isn't from openstack.org anymore, it's from Red Hat. So we're starting with a more mature base, and because of it, we're going to be able to churn the releases quicker. A couple things I've highlighted in here that are really good. The main thing, QoS for projects and VMs, so that allows you to like set how much I/O your volumes and stuff get. Greatly improved error message. OpenStack's been terrible with error messages. This is really good. So a lot of things there happened here. Revamped network topology that looks more like this.
You guys offering any like show back or charge back consumption perspective?
So in OpenStack, there is the Nova usage report, which people can do that with.
Yeah,
but if you
right.
put something like Cloud Center on top of it, they have a very sophisticated system in there where you can do whatever. You're going to talk about that, right? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That you can do, this group pays this much, this group pays that. I mean, you can
You
do all
guys aren't
kinds of
adding anything into it. It's
No.
just whatever's available.
Exactly. And it's really easy. I've written a simple Python program to pull that stuff out, shove it in a spreadsheet, and do some math, and it took me like 2 hours to do it.
Yeah,
I
but
just-
most people don't want.
I
Most
know.
people just want a nice little pretty dashboard.
But there's some of the developers took that, one guy took that and ran with it and made it better.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me just kind of show you a little bit how to do it. I'm not going to do it all for you. I'll just show you how to pull the data, and then you go do the data what you want to do.
Sure.
But I think.